Is there a discussion on the bill? Senator Bolton, you're in order.
Thank you. Obviously, we have a lot of concerns about this legislation, and we heard from a wide variety of people in a variety of occupations telling us about the things that they see that would be very harmful to them and their families if this legislation were to become law. There are some huge impacts on individual families here. The waiting week that we have talked about in various forms of legislation, including this one, we're talking about removing $23.9 million from the economy and from individual families for that waiting week. That's money that doesn't just disappear without consequence. And when we're talking about some of the workers that are engaged in the building and construction trades, we heard that if you're laid off on a Tuesday, you're going to wait 5 to 6 days to get to the waiting week. So you're going to go almost a full 2 weeks without a paycheck if there is a sudden interruption in a project. That's a whole paycheck, and not a lot of families are in a position to make things work with the sudden loss of an entire paycheck. That's a serious problem. And again, we're talking about a benefit that is awarded because the job loss is through no fault of the individual employee. We're talking about benefits that these individuals work to earn. You earn your weeks in unemployment. You don't just have them handed down from the sky. These are working Iowans who lost their job through no fault of their own that are applying for a benefit to help them transition from job to job. There's an aspect here of community service in order to stay eligible for unemployment benefits. Talk about a punch while somebody's down. The demeaning state-ordered community service, not unlike prison labor, in order to stay eligible for unemployment after you've lost your job. There's some harsh realities for individual Iowans with legislation like this, but I want to really focus on what these triggers actually mean. When we talk about when unemployment gets up above 4% or 5% or 6% or up to 8%, first of all, what does that mean to the individual who lost his or her job? And as they explain to their kids about the loss of income in their household and how they get by, the benefits being cut off earlier because the overall economy is at 4 or 5% unemployment. I don't know that that is actually recognized in that household. These are more than statistics. These are individual working Iowans who are affected by these changes. And if we want to look at when we've had occasion to have 5, 6, 7, 8% unemployment in this state, it's been very rare. You can look back to the Reagan administration, the only time in my lifetime when we have seen 8% unemployment, 40 years ago. You can look at other times, you can point to very serious national recessions. The recession that we experienced in the early 90s under the George H.W. Bush administration, or the administration of George W. Bush in the 2000s, where again we had a major recession pushing Iowa's unemployment above the 4 to 5% range. Not a lot of times that's happened. So what we're really doing with this legislation is we will be capping unemployment benefits for working Iowans who lose their jobs in good and bad Iowa economies to a minimal level. For what? What is gained from this? I'll tell you what is lost. It's lost by individuals who showed up at these subcommittee meetings, specifically on this bill, to talk about protecting their livelihood and their interest in staying in this state. So before we rush off to make a statistical solution to a very real impact in individual families' lives, let's take a step back and look at what unemployment is actually designed to do. And it's to help people who lose their job through no fault of their own transition to the next job. not to demonize them, not to make them feel more guilty for their job being eliminated. But that's the message that's sent here. And it's more than a message. It's reaching into their household budgets. That employee whose project ends in November on a building or construction site, very unlikely to get a new project that breaks ground before spring. So that employee, let's say mid-November, completes the project. They're a carpenter in the wintertime. They're going to wait through the rest of November, December, January, February, in all likelihood, exhaust those unemployment benefits just trying to get back out to do their work, to apply their trade. I don't think that's a good solution for our economy or that worker. And it's the same situation for a factory closing or a factory shutdown where a factory is retooling equipment to change their line of manufacturing. If they're out for 16 weeks, that employee is going to have to try to find a job to cover that last part of their layoff. Is it really good for an employer in this state to hire someone that they know will not stay longer than a couple of weeks? To train that employee to help them learn that job, only to see them go back into the factory that they knew they were going to go back to? Does that really help our economy to do that? So we have to think about the actual consequences of our actions, not just the talking points behind statistics. So I would urge a no vote on this legislation, and let's start talking about ways to actually reward working families versus being punitive here.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Dotzler, you're in order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple comments about this bill. We certainly do have a worker shortage in Iowa. We actually lack the people to fill the jobs. And our previous experience with pulling the federal benefits out didn't result in a major change in employment, and this won't either. But one of the things that's really bad about this bill is the fact that not only do we have a severe worker shortage, we have a skill set shortage that's unmatched. In the governor's own report, when they requested back, I think it was in 2015, the Workforce Center at Georgetown University to assess Iowa's future 10 years workforce needs, and the skill sets are there. They said that almost 70% of all the new jobs by 2025, which isn't that far away, are going to require some kind of post-secondary education. Well, the real problem with this bill is that when somebody gets laid off, it is the absolute best time for them to upgrade their skills and look at filling some of these higher skill set jobs. And I know that for a fact because when I worked at Deere & Company and they had their major layoffs, and I actually was laid off for months, I worked as an employment training specialist for Iowa Workforce Development, and we got a federal grant to help laid off workers. And what we did is we created a CNC, computerized numerical control training program at Hawkeye, and we took those laid off workers and in a 6-week course, we upgraded and taught them machine programming. We taught them blueprint reading, skilled gauging and measuring, and also the mathematics that went with it. So when they got called back to work, they were valuable and they spread out in the community, and some of them didn't go back to Deere. They went to Iowa Laser Technology, Blackhawk Engineering, and they got better paid jobs and filled those spots. With this bill, you are telling them that forget about taking care of the skill shortages in this state. You got to go to work at some maybe menial job that required no skill sets. And we got a ton of them too, because we talk about anti-immigration and people coming to Iowa. They don't want to come here. They don't feel like they're welcome. This bill hurts major businesses and our skill set shortages. The other thing that's really bad about it is when you got a major plant closing in a one-horse town. This is a statewide average for unemployment benefits, not that community's unemployment benefits. You try to find a job when Deere and Company and Rath laid people off in Black Hawk County. We had the highest unemployment rate in the nation in Black Hawk County. You couldn't find a job. I was working for something like $15, $18 an hour. The best job I could find was spraying insecticides for $5. And you know what that does to your health. Yeah, I would have been required to take that $5 an hour job. Luckily, I had a college degree and I ended up working for Iowa Workforce Development. This bill is counterproductive to our workforce shortage, is counterproductive to the benefits that help those communities and small businesses stay alive when Electrolux shut down in Webster City. It wasn't just about the worker, it's the money that fills the communities when you have a plant closing. We seen what happened in Newton when they lost their facilities with Maytag. So I'm going to tell you, I think this is short-sighted. Those benefits are something that is programmed into the cost of the labor of the individual. And if they didn't have unemployment benefits, that money should have been paid out to the person's wages and increased them. This bill here is really mean-spirited, counterintuitive, and it shouldn't go anywhere. It doesn't solve a problem, and it creates more problems throughout Iowa. I'm definitely a no.
Any further discussion? Senator T. Taylor, you're in order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a whole lot to add from what my colleagues have said about why they're opposed to this bill. I also rise opposed to this bill. There is no other way to describe what this bill does except for it cuts unemployment benefits. Now remember, these are earned benefits that you paid into, and it's an insurance program that it benefits the employer and the employee alike for when someone loses their job to no fault of their own. And I'd like to reiterate that we're not talking about any time when someone engages in misconduct or does something that gets themselves fired and loses their job. This is the innocent person, and I think we've seen some poll numbers where 75% of Iowans don't want to have unemployment benefits cut. That's number one, and that's what this bill does. Two, there are ideas that we could collaborate with in this committee and in this body to help and expand and make jobs more attractive and help people with resume building and maybe job seeking skills, and then, as Senator Dotzer said, improve their skill set at this time, maybe when they lose their job. And we're not doing that, really. We've seen bills like this in the past. I think we've seen a couple in this committee and in other committees. But one of the things that I do keep seeing that we often throw overboard, maybe we can throw overboard in this, is if you have a larger family or a lot of kids or a larger number of dependents, your benefits are reduced even more under this benefit reduction for unemployment bill. The governor spoke on the state of the economy and the state of the state address, and she gave a really bad, relevant example in the construction industry, I thought, and Senator Bolton brought that up, about if a construction worker, the project ends and we haven't broke ground on the project later, so that they're going to be out of work longer. I think some of the statistics that we keep track of, what happens when someone applies for work, doesn't get a job, and we say we're going to lower the wage that you have to accept and redefine suitable work that you have to take. And at some point, maybe, okay, gosh, we have to do that because our jobless state of affairs is so bad. We've got to have people who used to make $80,000, they've got to take a job a lot less after a period of time, I understand. But what we're doing is we're forcing unemployed Iowans to take lower wages. And that, guess what, is also cutting unemployment benefits. And who does that hurt? It hurts businesses. So I hope, people who run businesses understand that we take this kind of money out of the economy, the unemployment insurance benefit, that's not going to pay for child care for the weeks that you don't have it or when you have a less income, and you're not going to get your car fixed. And so it's going to hurt small businesses, and it's going to hurt the people with families, and it's going to hurt a lot of people. So this is nothing but hurtful. And so I look forward to further debate, and we'll offer some ideas for alternatives to this later. But thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Schultz, you're in order.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, I think it's getting a bit too dramatic. Everybody has a right to say what they want, but I have to offer a counterpoint. I would be the individual who I'm actually chairing the subcommittee for the governor's workforce bill. So I was thrilled to be number 2 on this one. So thank you, Chair Dickey. I got to see two subcommittees, and it was overwhelmingly negative. But my takeaway walking out of the room, it was also only trade unions who were upset about this. Now I understand that there is a very strong interest here on part of the committee to make sure that voice is heard. I respect that. You have every opportunity to do that, but I also want to identify that that's what we have. Tonight I'm going to be going to the ABC, Builders and Contractors. They represent the vast majority of our building industry that is, and it is non-union. I keep hearing numbers from 85% to 93% of the workforce that they represent, and none of them came to the subcommittees, either one. I mean, I can report that to the whole committee here because I was at both of them. They haven't, and I'm going to ask them tonight, why weren't you at either one of them? I'm looking forward to hearing what's going on. My experience is different. I mean, other than actually the walking around inside this building, my experience outside this building is vastly different than what I'm hearing. So everything from getting up in the morning and grabbing a cup of coffee at the convenience store on the way here to driving around the district on the weekends. I do the radio interviews, talk about this. I complimented the governor's condition of the state address, including this. And the feedback I get is good. In fact, the feedback I get at the convenience store, they've figured out when you walk in at 6 to 6:30 with a suit and an Iowa flag on your lapel, what are you doing? So I have had to explain. I don't try to lead with that, but when I tell them, well, we're going to start this week. I mean, what are you doing this week? We're doing workforce. We're going to address unemployment, and well, good. It's about time, is what I hear there. They can't find workers, and they know that there's people who could come to work who aren't. Back home, I hear the same thing in western Iowa. Now the fact that we have 2 bills, I just want to address that really quick. You have a novel idea. This is the only one that has a ratcheting system, an indexing system of anything. If that idea hadn't been brought out, whether or not it's in conjunction with the governor's bill, that's fine. You get to have any idea you want. You're a senator. You get to file it. I was proud to be on the subcommittee, and I'm going to be proud to vote yes on this. I don't know what the future is going to hold to the folks on the committee. I got a feeling that a governor's bill with a companion in the House, I think we know where we stand, but thank you for exploring the issue. I appreciate it. I will be supporting the bill. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, Senator Dickey, you are in order for closing remarks on Senate Study Bill 3096.
Thank you. Senate Study Bill 3096 is a more modern way how we administer unemployment benefits. Here's a perspective on how old our current unemployment structure is. There is a tax bill in the Senate right now where we're removing computer sales tax exemption that was created to offset the massive cost of a computer, which dated back in the 1980s.